Welcome to Grip Grind Glory, where grapplers train with purpose and grow through the grind. And now, your host thought-provoker and fellow grinder, Anna Janovics.
Hey guys, this is episode 7 of the Grip Grind Glory podcast, and today I'm going to talk about something that's been on my mind ever since I started judo, and that is women in martial arts. As you all know by now, I was the only woman in our club when I started, and even though it's not a problem for me as such, that's how I grew up, technically being the only girl in the sport club I used to go to. It did pose a couple of challenges for me in judo particularly. In other sports, for example kayaking, which I was into in my childhood going on to teens, you can do everything solo if that's what you want to, no problem. But in most martial arts, or in judo anyway, you need a partner to do it with. And so in every session I was the only girl. I wondered why there are no more women. There were a couple of months when we had another lady who was a great partner for me, but then she figured she didn't like being thrown, so she stopped. But then that was it for a very long time, just me and the boys. And so this period taught me a lot, which I would like to share with you all today. Well, some of it anyway. And it also made me very keen to promote women in martial arts, as I feel we're underrepresented in the industry very much. So one of the things I learned is that if we want to have more women in a martial art club, we'll have to provide the space for them, as in women-only sessions. In that setting, women feel like they belong, obviously, and not just because there are other ladies, but because the sessions are tailored to them a little bit more. Maybe with a female instructor, maybe the pace of the delivery, or the kinds of things they learned. And so even though it seems obvious, I don't see enough clubs doing it because there aren't enough women in their club. So it's viable to do it. But it's catch-22 again, isn't it? There are never going to be enough women in the club unless they have a dedicated session for themselves, is there? So the clubs have to invest and open up session times, even if there's only 1 or 2 female fighters in it. And just promote the hell out of it until there's more than that. And I think the biggest worry that would hold back any woman is that lads would be rolling onto their bodies and they would do the same the other way around. So it's fairly understandable that some of us would feel awkward or uncomfortable doing just that, unless this is how they grew up in the sport. It is just a side note, but the other thing is, on a governing body level, associations and federations will have to support clubs and promote their sports to women more, especially in this day and time when, gender equality and what have you is making headlines. What I found online, rough estimates really, is that women only take up 30% of fighters at the best. And that's a good number, I thought, but they're underserved, which I think the bigger problem is they can't take away as much as they have potential to because it's not tailored to them. The other thing I learned on my solo journey is that I have to have the confidence to walk up to a guy twice my size to ask whether he's free to roll with me. All this knowing that he'll probably not take as much away from the practice as I will, or as he would have liked to, simply because I'm more experienced, he's more experienced, or because he doesn't want to hurt me, quote unquote, obviously. And this is the bit where my self-leadership comes in handy. So I thought I'd share my thoughts around this with you all, how I, self-coach myself to get into these situations. Because of this setting, I'm on my own and I'd like to make the most out of the sessions. So I have to be courageous enough to share the space with guys and be ready to train with them. And so the very first thoughts that come to mind are that I'm weaker, I'm a lot smaller, I'm less experienced, and I don't want to hold them back with my falling behind compared to them. These are all self-talk, obviously very unuseful. I tell myself at first, but then I remind myself why I'm there in the first place. And if the club doesn't give it to me, I have to get it for myself, right? So I prime my brain to get ready for this before every session. I visualize myself stepping on the mat full of lads and me standing in the line as the only woman. And I also anticipate the feeling of being paired up with one of them and tell myself that it's okay. Everyone learns something from everything. I'm there to learn. It's a safe space and it's okay. And you know what? Over time, that mental prep I do before each session, that visualizing, reframing, self-coaching, has become a superpower. Because I'm not just showing up to get better at judo, but also to take up space for myself, to get stronger, to own my journey. And this mindset carries into everything else in my life. There is something really powerful in knowing that you don't wait for permission. You don't wait. You give it to yourself, that you are steering your own life the way you want it to be steered, that you don't need conditions to be perfect before you begin. Because let's be honest, they're never perfect, are they? It's when, for example, when you're planning to have a baby. It's never the perfect time to have a baby, is it? I used to think once we have more women, it will feel easier. But actually, it works the other way around. It only starts to feel better once you decide to show up fully, even if you're the only one. And when you start doing that consistently, people notice. Not the coaches or the guys in your class, but women on the outside looking in. Maybe they saw your post on Instagram, maybe they saw you at a comp, maybe they just noticed you never quit. And that visibility is already doing the work. And that's the thing I wish more clubs understood. They wait for the numbers to justify the effort, basically. But sometimes it's the effort that creates the numbers. A lot of times, actually. Run that women's open mat, even if it's just you and one other person. Film it, talk about it, let people see it exists. Because trust me, there are women out there waiting to feel like they won't be the only one walking through the door. We talk a lot in judo and grappling about grit. But the real grit for women is not just in the rolls and the throws, but in the showing up without a tribe, again and again. It's in asking for a partner, knowing you'll probably get someone heavier, stronger, more experienced, and still stepping up anyway. And this is where I think a lot of women's potential gets left on the table, because we're not really soft or fragile, but we are sometimes tired of the right conditions. Imagine how much talent we'd see rise if more women felt safe to start in the first place, supported to stay, and challenged to grow. And that's why Grip Grind Glory isn't just a brand or a program, but it's a movement. I didn't start this because I wanted to sell grip training or mindset coaching, make, some quick cash on it, but because I didn't want to be the only woman in this space anymore. And I figured if I'm feeling this, other women must be too. And yes, we need an online space where it's only us, growing, putting in the work between sessions and transforming our own lives on and off the mat on our own terms. So I've made it part of my mission to show up online the way I wish someone had shown up for me when I started. Not polished or perfect, but rather present. Just be there. Because maybe some woman scrolling at midnight, wondering if she's too old or too late or too, whatever to start grappling, maybe she hears this and thinks, if she's doing it, maybe I could too. And yes, absolutely, anyone could do it. And that's how it begins. That's how we grow, right? And listen, this isn't about being nice and nurturing and softy. Women don't need things watered down. That's a misconception. It's just horrendously wrong. We need things opened up. Open up the space, open up the conversation, open up the bloody class schedule and add the women's session. Don't change the challenge, just make it accessible. One of the most valuable things I've realized through this journey is that Belonging isn't about being invited. You'll never be invited as such. It's about claiming your own space and changing the culture while you're there. And that requires courage at first. But worry not, that's also something we teach in our programs. And what I also say is that it's all in our heads. Obviously, if we can change our mindset around the whole women in martial arts thing, we'll feel confident as hell on and off the mat, no matter what. But first, we have to change how we think of ourselves in this space. And that's also something we teach in our programs. At the moment, what I'm most struggling with is that I don't have anyone to compete with, basically. As sad as it sounds, there are no other badass women out there who have only started their judo journey. 30 plus, 57 kilos, no more conditions. But even worse news is that there aren't any kind of women virtually. I went to a comp organized for Yorkshire and the Humberside by British Judo Association, and there were 12 of us, 8 of them going for downgrades, as in black belt plus, and that was it. They didn't come to fight, to have fun, or to try themselves. They came for the points for their new grade. And so, what's the point of going? I was getting prepared for the bloody competition for 6 weeks, putting in the work. So I have to generate this kind of thing. I thought, I'm going to lead this movement. Organization of the event also was absolutely disgraceful. Just like before, but even worse. And so I shouldn't really be surprised about this, but I still am. Anyway, I could go on and on about this for ages, but that's not what I'm here to talk about this week, so I don't want to waste your time on it. And before I wrap this up, there's one more thing I've learned and would like to share with you. Maybe the most important one is that being alone in this space for so long has made me face myself in ways I didn't expect. When you're the only one, you don't just train technique, you train identity. Because there's no one to mirror, no one to compare yourself to, no one to hide behind. And you either build your own reflection or you disappear. And obviously I didn't want to disappear, and I think no one should do. So I had to figure out who I was going to be, not just as a grappler, but as a woman choosing to stay. And that taught me to self-validate, to not need external hype or matching training partners or fancy squad. I had to become my own motivator, my own hype team, my own cheerleader. And honestly, that kind of strength doesn't come from drilling arm bars. It comes from walking into a space where you feel like an outsider and deciding you belong anyway. It made me more honest with myself too, because I couldn't rely on anyone else to define my progress, so I had to get clear on what my wins looked like. Some days that means showing up when I don't want to. Other days it means saying no to a role I'm not ready for. And sometimes it meant, just walking home with tears in my eyes because I got smacked around and still coming back next week. That kind of solitude can feel brutal. But if you let it, it also becomes sacred. When you're alone, you have absolutely no one to impress. Only someone to become, and you define who that someone is gonna be. When you train from that place, not for applause or for Instagram, but because it's shaping you into the version of yourself you're meant to be, that's when the magic happens. So yeah, being the only one is hard. It's lonely, frustrating. But it's also pure. It gives you a foundation that's yours. It's yours alone. And that's unshakable. And hey, best thing yet, Grip Grind Glory was born from my solitude, so others never have to experience it the way I did. This is a space for women. We've just decided that we're narrowing down our niche and we'll only work with women for the foreseeable future, which makes me unbelievably excited, and I can't wait to share learnings, my systems and my tools with you all. Just to avoid confusion, and this is disclaimer for the end, I'd like to emphasize how supportive and lovely every single guy I've ever met in this space is. So it's not about them. It's rather about how there should be more women in this space. I hope I'm very clear on that I very, very much appreciate everyone who's ever trained with me or did interact with me one way or another on or off the mat. I love you all. So to wrap up, here's what I'll say. To the women who are already training, I see you. Keep going. You're not just building a skill, but a path, an invaluable path for others. And to the women who have left because it felt too isolating for them, I get it too. But I truly hope from the bottom of my heart that someday you find a space that feels different, or you build one even better. And to the coaches and clubs out there, if you want to grow the sport, start with your women. Not just your champions, your beginners, mums, 40 years old, the ones who walk in scared, who still walk in scared, the ones who almost, they're unsure whether they want to do it and whether they want to come. Create for them, create a space for them, and your whole club will grow stronger because of it. I believe there's a huge untapped market out there. All right, my friend, that's it for episode 7. If this hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Or better yet, message me and tell me your story. I want to build a real community around this. I'm adamant. This is the way forward. Women who fight, who fall, rise, lead. Because we don't need more gimmicks. We just need each other, I believe. So let's go get it. I'll see you next week, my dear friends. And until then, let's grip, grind, and glory.